dysfunctioning in terms of our personality and the habits that we have as ourselves. I mean, a lot of people get caught up and say, you know, I am this way. They own their problems, they own their issues. They say, I am an angry person, I can't help being this way. Well, you can, if you take conscious control of it and start to change yourself and mold yourself as you see fit. Some people have an aversion to this idea because it means that they have to own up to their problems in their life, in their being, and they now realize that they have to start changing it. And some people have a lot of work to do. If you're unfamiliar with doing internal work in terms of meditation, affirmations like I'm talking about, any sort of self-work in improving yourself, your health, your mind, etc., it's possible you might have an aversion to this, but I'd say this is definitely a reason why you want to get on this. So if you think of this idea of your personality or your mental body as like a battery, and you want to charge this battery up with the qualities and habits that you want. So by doing affirmations, you start to charge up that battery. If the battery is completely dead in terms of one type of quality, it's going to take a lot of work. You know, like I said, affirmations in the morning and right before you go to bed, it's easier just to do 20 of them, or 21, or 18, or around that number. And this starts filling that up, and eventually it's topped up, and you maintain that. It actually maintains its charge. And if it is really hard ingrained, it might creep back in, then you start biting your nails again if that's the one you're working on. But you charge that battery up, and by having that battery charged, so to speak, when you go to bite your nails, because you've been working on it so much, that pops into your mind that you're like, oh, I've been working on this, I don't want to bite my nails, and then you just don't. You second guess yourself, or you start doing it and you stop in the middle of it, or whatever. You can't be hard on yourself with it either. You increase this so-called battery charge of the habit or personality trait that you want to increase, and over time it's going to come into your mind to do that or be that way in the moment when you need to do it. And you have to eventually start following that too. So it's not just about saying the affirmations and it's going to happen in your life. You actually have to take action once you're doing the affirmations and be this way in the world. So if you want to be a happier person and you're doing affirmations about being happier, but you're sitting around, you know, not really just expecting it to happen, when it comes to your mind, that's when you have to let it flow through and actualize it and be that quality you want to see yourself become in the world. And I want to talk about in terms of affirmations is the way you say them, and also the way you imbue them in things that you're going to take into your body and your being. If you're sitting there sort of just saying the words mindlessly just to get it over with because you're tired and you just want to get to sleep, and you're just saying it because you know you want to do this and it's for the best, but if you don't have the passion behind the intent of saying it, it's going to be less effective. I mean, to a certain extent, if you're just mindlessly repeating the words, it's going to have a vague effect. But if, for example, we're working with that, I avoid biting my fingers or chewing on my fingers, if that's your affirmation, you want to lie there in your bed at night. You know, if you can, you don't need to say it out loud, but it can help in terms of really being present with it. It's a short period of time doing just 18 affirmations, so you really shouldn't have your mind wandering too much unless you have a lot of work to do in terms of meditation to increase your ability to focus. That could come before doing affirmations if your attention span is really terrible. Or you might want to look at some things nutritionally to enhance that, such as essential fatty acids, etc. But when you're lying there saying the affirmations, you want to be present and focused on what you're saying, obviously. You want to say it slowly, and in your mind you can use intonation, which I mean, when you're saying it in your mind, you can emphasize things in a certain way to keep your focus on the affirmation. And this could sound like, for example, if I'm using the affirmation, I avoid chewing on my fingers, it could be, I avoid chewing on my fingers. So putting emphasis, that sounds kind of strange, but if you emphasize it in your mind in that way, it keeps your mind focused on it because it's not really a normal way of speaking. And then the next one, so you do one like that, you do the next one, you change it a little bit. You just emphasize different parts of the phrase. And by doing that, you're going to be focusing on the phrase, and that's one trick you can use to stay focused on an affirmation. The other thing to do is use as many senses as possible in your mind. So you're saying the word and you're feeling the emphasis of it. But in terms of, I avoid chewing on my fingers or on my hands, your visualization that could accompany it is you see yourself pulling your hand away from your face. So you're going, I avoid chewing on my fingers. And so in your mind's eye, you feel yourself as if you're sitting there saying this and pulling your hand away. Going, no, I don't want to do this. Although you're not using the negative, because we don't want to use that to imbue our unconscious mind, but we're saying, I avoid doing this. The same thing could be if you're trying to avoid smoking. You're going, I avoid smoking. You can see yourself stamping out a cigarette or throwing it in a garbage can or something. So you've got the visual aspect, you've got the word aspect, which is the intellectual understanding. You can also accompany feeling, and this is kind of more hard to grasp, but it might not work with that image of feeling that you're avoiding chewing on your fingers. But if you were doing something like, I am a happy, radiant being, if that was your affirmation, you would want to actually feel that as you're saying the affirmation. So you're saying that in your mind, you're feeling it, you visualize yourself being that way, so you can almost see yourself from afar being that way. So this might seem like a lot at first, and you might just want to stick with the basic affirmation of just saying it and being focused on it. But the more senses you can involve, in terms of the senses of your mind, so these are like visualization, tactualization, and I mean like feeling, this is imagining something, then the more effective it is going to be for penetrating your unconscious mind and actually eliciting this change that you want to occur.